Basically, the judge said that AB, which is the name of the child, can consent to treatment, meaning that parents have no right, parents have no place in this decision. And that's what we're left with. For me, this is, like I said right from the beginning, this is ground zero for the decimation of parental rights in Canada, right here today.
This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth. We're here out front of the Appeals Court of BC, Canada for the third and final day of these proceedings we've been presiding over for the last 3 days now, dealing with a father who is desperately trying to do the job of parenting, and the state is stepping in and not letting him do it, essentially. Now, we've just concluded 3 days, and what would you say is your initial reaction to how the proceedings went over the course of the 3 days? I mean, it's been a lot of back and forth, but a lot was said. A lot was brought up by both sides. What's your initial takeaway by how the proceedings went?
You know, the very first day, the first application that came from the lawyers for the child, and they said this whole appeal should be dismissed. Let's dismiss this appeal because basically the damage is already done. The child has been on testosterone since February or March, and any of the results now cannot be reversed. And I thought, well, isn't that fantastic? Here we have a kid that is basically just a collateral damage to an agenda that has in their wake to be able to have children decide for themselves and parents pushed out of the picture.
And one of the lawyers even brought up the fact that this testosterone that's actually being given to this child has not been tested. I mean, isn't there a lot to say about the fact that it's literal experimenting on children with stuff that we don't even know what the effects are, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's always been my position on this. It's that how can a child even consent to treatment when they don't even know what's going to happen to them? You know, 5 years, 10 years from now, what are the aspects of cancer coming into the picture? They have no conception of what's going to happen to them. How can they consent?
Now, there's a lot was brought up, but what do you feel is really the crux of the matter here? I mean, it seems like they were dealing with the issues of informed consent and whether or not the child had that or not, and whether or not there were violations of the charter for the father. I mean, what would you say is some of the more core issues that are at stake here?
Yeah, I mean, we covered a lot of ground, and it's kind of mind-boggling. But I think that the judges, they kept coming back to the fact that the important piece of this case was, can the child consent? Can the child give consent? And that, I think, is ridiculous to assume that an 11, a 12, a 13-year-old child can give consent, and therefore the parents are pushed out of this whole equation.
Now, the appeal, in a nutshell, is essentially this father, and correct me if I'm wrong, but attempting to get back the ability to speak about this case. Is that right? Because, as I understand it, the reason why we have to say, you know, this father instead of his name is because of the publication ban. He's trying to have that lifted. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. He would like to have his voice back so that he can defend himself in the public opinion and in the press. I remain hopeful that he's going to be allowed to do that. But at this point, given what the judge said at the end, I'm skeptical even about that.
Yeah. Now, we did get essentially a ruling. The judge did say he's going to explain why they went there. But can you briefly touch on what we've just been left with now at the end of 3 days?
Basically, the judge said that AB, which is the name of the child, can consent to treatment, meaning that parents have no right, parents have no place in this decision. And that's what we're left with. For me, this is, like I said right from the beginning, this is ground zero for the decimation of parental rights in Canada, right here today.
Honestly, guys, it's a really truly a sad day when 3 of these judges can make this decision that a 14-year-old girl, 11 years old when she first started suffering from gender dysphoria, can make this decision against the will of her own father. It's a travesty, really. Let's call it what it is. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, in closing, I mean, you are here representing the People's Party of Canada, and I know they are the only party who's been talking about this at all. What would you like to see come of this in the coming, months from now?
The people need to understand that the only way out of this situation is through legislation. The courts have spoken. Whether or not this gets appealed to the Supreme Court of Canada is yet to be seen, but the courts have essentially spoken. So the people need to go with a political party that has the intention of making parents, perhaps protected groups themselves, that will challenge the current legislation that the provinces have brought forward that have stripped parents of their rights. So we need to attack this from a federal perspective, from a federal jurisdiction. And like I've said before, to say nothing and to do nothing, you are complicit with the parental rights being stripped in this country. And so we implore you to vote for the People's Party of Canada so that we will be allowed to step forward on behalf of parents, all parents across Canada.
And I'll add that you can really have a say against this by not complying. I mean, you can homeschool your children. You can go about ways of seeing that the state is not going to be able to have their, as we say, their fingers around the necks of these people. So they liked that one. They just walked by. But anyways, yeah, that's the crux of the matter. Global noncompliance is really what we need to look at as well. So yeah, let people know where they can go if they want to get involved with the party or if they want to try to contribute in that way.
Okay, so go to the peoplespartyofcanada.ca website and find out who your candidate is in your riding. We have candidates in almost every riding in this country. So you, by all means, you will probably have a candidate. I have a website, it's aireland.ca, and I will be standing for parental rights. The People's Party of Canada is not afraid to talk about important issues. There was no other party here at the court or even discussing this. There was 4 of us over the course of the days. I was here every day, but there was 4 of us, PPC candidates, that will speak about parental rights. We will speak about freedom of speech, freedom of conscience, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion. These are all freedoms that are being eroded in this country right now. So the best way to do that, to save this country and to save our constitutional freedoms, is to vote for the PPC.
And on that note, I mean, they are the only people who are here covering it, and I'm not seeing other media here covering this either. And that too is an absolute travesty and a shame. So if you appreciate our efforts here at Press for Truth to cover this incredibly important precedent-setting case, also check the links in the description to find out how you can support our efforts moving forward. We're going to continue to stay on top of this one as it develops, and as the judge said, they're going to have more information about the ruling coming soon, so we'll report on that as soon as we get that information. Once again, thank you so much for talking to us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We all want truth. The truth will set you free.